prompt as a way of being able to say, okay, great, this is my palette. This is what I want. Can you now start me off with, here are the sets of actions and connections that get me closer to the outcome that I'm looking for, and then be able to tweak and tune that. I don't think it necessarily absolves personal responsibility of the individual that needs to do the work, but at least reducing the bar.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. And today we don't have Robert. So it's not going to be as interesting with the weather updates and the episode numbers, etc. But I'm covering for him. And this is Analyst Gone Wild or Gone Grumpy, however you want to put it. We'll make sure that we are analyzing these stories thoroughly. So you can expect that. We meet for these episodes every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you're in the audience, we are a big fan of this 3-day conversation. So make sure you guys post any sort of experiences that you have with these stories, etc. So on that note, we are going to start with quick intros. Let's start with Brian.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Sam. Glad to be here and join you guys again for another week of this. Always fun. I'm with Infotech Research Group, where I cover emerging technologies, give advice to CIO clients. We're based here in Toronto. Infotech has global locations around the world, serving clients throughout North America, Europe, Australia. So happy to be here.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Brian. Kengon, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. My name's Kengon Gonzalez. Kengon's my nickname, so feel free to call me that. I'm with Pretty Simple Group. I provide advisory services to CIO and their direct staff, as well as cover infrastructure and operations and things related to it.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here. John, do you want to go next?
Sure. And Brian, go Leafs.
Yeah, that's right.
Go Leafs.
Boy, it's been a long time since we've
3-3
seen this sort of
and
success.
They come back 17 seconds later.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a Canadian show again?
Yeah, it's
we actually don't know how to be happy about the playoffs, so we're in a strange spot.
My name is John Hansen. I'm founder of Procurement Insights, a blog that started in 2007. I provide consulting services, access actually to one of the industry's largest archives for procurement and high tech, going back some 40 years. And I know I'm dating myself, but that information we can indeed learn from the past.
John actually saw the Leafs win the cup the last time.
I did. I honestly did. 1967. So the stars are lined up for this year. So anyway. So that's what I do. Just type in Procurement Insights. I pop up anywhere.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, John. Thomas?
Thomas Liebernight. I'm the principal analyst for Ahead CRM. Well, also the owner of Ahead CRM. And I cover CRM-ish, CX-ish topics. Well, these days they can't do without AI. So that's basically me. In 1967, I didn't watch anything. At least not consciously.
Hey, that's why I get those Facebook ads on hair growth and vitamins.
Yeah, I was not even born back then, I guess.
I was.
Well, thank you. That's great, Sam. Thanks for sharing that.
All right, guys. So we are going to start with the first story. And I think we are going to have a lot of CRM and CX topics today, Thomas. So I'll provide a quick overview of this story. So this is BMC, and BMC is a very interesting company in my mind. They did a lot of QA test-centric systems, a little bit of project management, I guess. That's my understanding of their focus. So here, in this case, they are saying new Gen AI advisor for the Control M SaaS solution. So I don't know this is for mainframe. So, obviously we have AI related offerings for mainframe as well. Seems like mainframe is not going to go away. The experience is going to change. So that's why they are probably creating this offering. In my mind, I can see some value. I don't know about you guys. What do you guys think of this story?
Yeah, I just want to say there's two separate solutions here, right, Sam? There's the Control M SaaS solution. So there's the JAT, right? So that's for the natural language interface to understand your hybrid infrastructure management workflow. And then you've got the BMC AMI assistant, and that's the one for the mainframe environment that says it will help you, understand your mainframe and help your Gen Z users. So while people like John, very familiar with mainframe infrastructure, Sam and myself might be a little less comfortable. We might need a more modernized environment when we're trying to work. But if we have an AI assistant to help us with that, and we could just ask it to explain the archaic workings of mainframe systems, then we might be able to get by, I guess is the idea. Yeah, but there are those two. BMC is bringing us two different AI-powered solutions here that have different jobs.
Yeah, more comments?
So you know what I find interesting is BMC has been around since 1980, so they've been around a long time. And one of the first things, and we talked about this in the virtual green room, is they're sizable revenue. They've been around a while, but I asked the obvious question because I never really heard of them before, even though I've been around this long. But one of the things I want to know is how does it relate back to the procurement world? Procurement and supply chain. And when I did an analysis, went through the archives, one of the matches they said would be ideally Coupa of all things. So when I'm looking at these news releases over here, I'm saying, well, how does this fit in? If I'm in procurement and supply chain, how does this fit in? If I'm in IT, what's the integration? What are we dealing with here? Because I see this as being the merging of related yet seemingly disparate worlds coming into play here. So I would hazard a guess most people in procurement haven't heard of BMC, yet here they have something that there is potentially an overlap to that can help in terms of S2P and analytics integration.
Yeah, Ken, you had some comments?
Yeah, I like the fact that you're calling out procurement because one of the things I've actually been talking a lot with infrastructure and operations folks and the CIOs that have them report to them is that we need to start getting a lot more proactive about how we're actually managing our contract obligations and dealing with it. You just can't say, hey, IT goes off, figures out what they want, and then they pass the buck off to somebody else who's going to negotiate the terms of the contract and expect that you're going to be satisfied with what you get. So I think that kind of raising the visibility and getting people engaged in that way is going to be a really good thing. So I'd like to see more of that. So truthfully, the BMC release here shows that, for a long time, they've built a lot of good infrastructure and operations related, kit for people to use to improve and deal with things around, okay, how do we support the applications and services that we're currently making available? And how do we make the interfaces better? I think that from a back-end perspective, the BMC set of tools is really good. It's robust and it covers quite a lot of ground. Whether or not they're actually taking ground and expanding, because the whole premise of business value that's talked about here in the release, it's a bit sketchy. If you talk about business value as, okay, quick resolution times, okay, that's one level of value, but I don't think that quite goes far enough given the current climate.
Yeah, great points, guys. More comments?
Yeah, this fits into. Oh, sorry, I'll let Thomas go ahead there.
This is certainly quite niche. Yeah. So, and I actually see, to contradict Ken Gon a little, just for the sake of it, two pieces of value. One is what they actually say is, well, transition means getting your own old iron out into the cloud. And the other one is getting it back out of the cloud. So means extend the lifetime of the old mainframes or the own mainframes, basically. So there are two quite interesting value propositions in there. Although I agree, this is quite in the, well, very specialized arena. My first reaction was kind of a joke. So the JET empowers me to speak to my mainframe via AMI. So that's been my first reaction. But I think there's a bit behind it. At least a chance, a bet. That's a bet.
Brian, you had a comment?
Yeah, I mean, for people that work around IT operations, BMC is a more familiar company, I think. So what I was looking at is the more of the JET solution in here and how it's helping automate some of these infrastructure workflows, and I think that's interesting. And one thing I've been telling my clients lately is talking about democratizing AI, putting those tools in the hands of domain experts, allowing them to use natural language to interrogate deeper into the things that are going on around their workflows and to seek automation opportunities there. And I think that might offer this. There's potential for that. Obviously, I haven't tested this out. I haven't seen it executed yet, but what they're talking about sounds good. And I am curious because they say they have this idea with this mainframe assistant AMI where they're talking about like, oh, we have a curated library of large language models and will also allow you to bring your own large language model. But then I couldn't find information about like what are the ones available already, right? And when you're talking to a company and saying, well, you have to bring your own large language model into this system, I mean, that adds complexity, right? So I want to know more about, well, what's available already? What do you have ready on to pick up off the shelf and start putting this thing to use?
All right, amazing points, guys. If you don't have any more comments, I'll go to the next story. All right. So this is very interesting as well. And this is with Certinia. And John, I guess you are going to have comment that, hey, I have never heard of these guys either.
Well, you know what, when I look at it, and by the way, my elemental roots are in high tech. I mean, I go back to the Commodore 64 and K-Pro days with CPM.
Yeah.
But here's another company, been around since 2009.
Yeah.
Which is, it's certainly not 1980s, but 2009. But when I look at the organization, again, they're about a $300 million a year company. And when I repatriate back to how does it fit into the procurement realm, which I'm going to do with each one of these, they align with SAP Ariba. Supplier management and broader automation. S2P automation is what the conversation is. So, I mean, like, how does that come together? That's what when I talk about my readers and the people I on both practitioner and provider sides that I serve, I mean, they're going to say, where does this fit into all of this infrastructure? Where does this fit into what we have? Yeah. And that's really, again, bringing that piece together. So, again, what are they going to be doing? How do they clarify that? Do they even have a strategy, a pathway to do that? Because supply chain and procurement are becoming, they have always been, but they're becoming not the adjunct backroom office function of finance. They're becoming a strategic tool. Yeah. So, I mean, like, are these organizations, I'll put out to the rest of the panel, I mean, are they actually looking beyond their core IT roots to say, where's the practical application in a key area like procurement and supply chain?
Yeah, so I'm going to provide some background on them, and it's probably going to be easier because the challenge with the enterprise software space is that it doesn't matter whether you are born in 1969 or 1980, unless you are tracking these companies on a daily basis. It's very, very, very hard to keep track of because the rebranding is happening, the consolidations are happening, the names are changing. And in this case, John, this used to be called Financial Force, and you might remember with Financial Force. So Financial Force was one of the ERPs in the Salesforce ecosystem, for the service-centric industries, not necessarily for the product-centric industries. So I would say in the Salesforce ecosystem, they are probably the top two ERP systems. There are many now, but these guys were comparable to, I would say, Workday is probably the easiest example. But these guys are not necessarily HCM; they are just ERP. They have PSA module as well. I don't know if you guys understand PSA, which is the professional services automation. There are very few platforms that really have the professional, services component. So this is not necessarily going to be in the supply chain world, but it's more going to be in the consulting professional services, tech side of the world, and they are going to do the PSA plus finance. Then you have Salesforce. Most likely you are probably going to use Salesforce as CRM. And the reason why Ariba or Coupa is going to be in the mix, because most tech companies are probably going to use that as well. So here, obviously, these guys are not as leading ERP player as the other companies that we have reviewed, and these guys are not going to have as much budget, I guess, from the AI capabilities perspective. But Salesforce, whatever R&D budget that they are putting in, that's gonna actually bubble up to these guys as well. So that's why they are going to have a lot more, AI capabilities. And in this case, I mean, the feature set that they have provided, I can see a lot of value. And anybody who's going to be in the Salesforce ecosystem is getting a huge AI upgrade in general. So those are my comments. Now I'll open up the floor to you guys.
To me, the interesting part, I mean, this is a release announcement, so they are having a bunch of things that they deliver, like a resource summary. Fine, everybody does summary, account summary, everybody does that these days. The part that's quite interesting is the smart rescheduling. So where project managers actually get signals and actionable suggestions on when their projects go awry or haywire, belly up, before they go belly up. So that is quite interesting to have in order to keep implementation projects on time. And we all know how software projects, or excuse me, and other projects go. So this is more an art to estimate than a science. And project managers can need all help they can get. So that part is really interesting, I think.
Yeah, more comments, guys?
Sam, you were talking about how you think Salesforce users are going to get a big AI upgrade out of this. Are you saying that you see this as providing the most potential value for customers that are using Salesforce as well? I mean, you're talking about something that was built on Salesforce natively. It integrates with it well. You understand that. Does that mean that it's still sort of a package in your mind? It all has to work together?
Yeah, so I would not say steal. I would say since they are built on that platform and they are sort of leveraging their R&D budget, anything that is going to be available on Salesforce platform is probably going to be available to these guys. Now, if you contrast and compare this with a platform that is going to have their own sort of tech stack, then they need to invest their own R&D in developing all of those agents that Salesforce is providing out of the box. So these guys are sort of going to be ahead in the market, in my mind, because Salesforce is providing those capabilities. They have much larger R&D budget compared to other, companies. So this is good with anybody who's going to be in Salesforce ecosystem, probably Microsoft, Oracle, SAP. The other companies are probably not going to be as ahead as these guys in terms of AI capabilities, the way I see it.
Yeah, sometimes you just wonder if generative AI is that, like, there's definitely hype around it, right? And I feel like companies want to say they're using it for features that, and you wonder, well, is it really necessary for that? Like, Thomas here highlights the smart rescheduling feature, and then you're thinking, well, is generative AI really good at understanding when things should be scheduled, and what are the variables that go into understanding when that needs to happen and when it's appropriate to happen? It's just a lot of context that goes into that and understanding how it's making those recommendations.
That part is probably good old analytical AI.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just that part about the smart rescheduling is probably good old analytical AI, and hence the key part that delivers value, of which we know it delivers value. I mean, summary generation is quite meh.
It's got a LinkedIn vibe here, just from the photo they're showing us, right? Of the, you're scouring through your own employee resources. It's like you're going to hire them for the project that you want to assign. So it's sort of an interesting CX choice there.
Well, what's interesting to me, and you Brian, you asked a question, the generative AI answer, how does it come about, etc. And I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago where it said, is there a secret formula that companies have with their generative AI, like Coca-Cola's secret recipe or KFC? And the reality is that the models are everybody's trying to do their own way. More than one road leads to Rome. And when it comes to generative AI, I think you have to have a multi-model framework in place that can take in several different sources of the information coming in, and then being able to validate it. Because where are we at with this? Like, I mean, what's making their generative AI better than somebody else's generative AI? What makes it more reliable? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think one of the potentially compelling things about this is, especially from some of the companies I've worked with, they tend to think about things in terms of like job roles and things that people do. And there's a lot less focus on capabilities, so that you can actually look across job roles to see who might be qualified to be able to do something or participate in a particular piece of work. So I think to the extent that the generative AI capabilities can actually help people start to take a broader view of the people they have available to them and what they're potentially capable of doing, I think that opens up some opportunities to broaden the thinking and potentially provide customer solutions that may not have been necessarily apparent prior to that introduction. So to the extent that it helps the provider get a better handle on what resource they have available and how they can help customers, I think that's a really good thing. Now, it does go, you do have to think about it in terms of everybody's got their own flavor. So you can't just trust that something out of the box is going to come up and give you the right thing. So it does place the burden on the adopting entity to be able to go through and figure out, is this the right fit for what we're trying to do?
See, that's a great point, Sam, and it goes back to yours. I mean, ownership of success of utilizing these tools. Are organizations ready to step up and take ownership of that? Yeah. Or are we still running into no one ever got fired for buying IBM, so I did the right safe choice, and it's up to them to fix it? I mean, I see a lot of abdication happening on the practitioner side, and a lot of, we're just going to sell this on the provider side because, we have targets to hit and stock prices to maintain. I mean, I talked to a VP of marketing for a big company, and he said to me, and it floored me, he said, listen, we take on clients we don't think are going to be successful, but we're still going to take them on because it's better us than somebody else. I mean, that's really the whole mindset over here. Are these clients digital ready? Are they willing to step up? Because they're ultimately going to have to drive this and analyze this and utilize it. I mean, I look at this as being no different than my Funkin' Wagnalls, my Microfiche, and Google search. I mean, you still need to have, all it is faster and more accessibility, but you still need a logic and intelligence behind there. I mean, am I missing something? Maybe my coffee hasn't kicked it.
More comments, guys. Sorry, Thomas, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Yeah.
I am, because I was coughing a little. Well, the coffee hasn't probably also kicked in for the client of yours, because that guy is probably certainly in dire need of a reputation management solution. Because taking up clients of which they know they fail will have that will shed a light on them sooner or later.
Well, and that's the whole thing, but that's more common than we care to note. I mean, there's been studies done on that. And we get in a whole other can of worms with VC investment, public, acquisitions, etc., where we don't want to go today because that's a show in itself. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. You've got to choose the right clients to work with. Otherwise, your technology, no matter what it does, is not going to deliver the results.
Yeah. All right, guys. If you don't have any more comments on this, you can move to the next one.
Why do you apologize?
Yeah.
For interrupting our rant.
Yeah. So I'll move to the next one. So here, this is laser fish, I guess, and I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. My understanding of these guys is that they are in the document management space. And John, I don't know if you have heard of these guys or not, but in my mind, their comparison is going to be with OpenText. OpenText is in sort of the enterprise content management space. That's a beast in itself. That's a field in itself, I guess. Completely different community. Generally, banks, telecom, media. I would say anti-supply chain companies.
Yeah. Listen,
are probably going to use this.
First thing I thought when I saw Laserfish, and then that they were started in 1987, I thought microfiche, because now you're into Laserfish. So I mean, I think it's a Star Wars version that's still a classic movie, but certainly not on the leading edge of what we're seeing today, but certainly practical basis. There's some soundness in there. You know what I mean? You're around since 1987. You're going to be able to do that. And just for discussion's sake, they match this company up with a value in the procurement world. So for your procurement supply chain, and valuable listeners, apparently you two should get together. But yeah, I mean, no, this is one company that was very familiar to me, if you could say it. But I get what they're doing. I'm just wondering whether or not it's just renaming an old thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And in this particular case, I guess, I mean, when I look at the feature sets that they are providing from the lenses of AI, I can see a lot of value in this, especially for companies like us, analyst firms that are going to be really big content heavy. They are going to have millions and millions of, documents, content. The biggest problem that we all have is the searchability and findability. So this is where I guess this comes in, that you can do a lot. And even if you are sort of appending these smart fields, if you did this with ERPs, I'll probably be mad. With documents, I'm probably going to be okay, because you are not necessarily breaking anything. You can add whatever metadata that you want, and that is probably going to help overall, from the findability perspective. So I personally see a lot of value in terms of what they are doing, and it's very consistent with everything else that is happening in the AI space. So now to the floor.
Well, it's certainly an approach to avoid hallucinations by having documents analyzed. Else it reminds me of a specialized version of Notebook LM, minus the generate me a podcast piece.
Yeah, if it's that, I think it's pretty powerful. And as I'm looking at this type of solution, I think that ECM providers like this, and I appreciate that you mentioned OpenText. That's more Canadian content for today's session here.
Now you know why I mentioned that, right?
The Laserfish, they have to be feeling like they need to get to pushing out these sort of AI capabilities, because organizations, they're using ChatGPT Enterprise, right? They're using Microsoft Copilot, and that's essentially becoming the ECM platform for these enterprises. And even the way some of this language and the messaging is coming across, like I'm seeing, smart fields, like capture your metadata by writing a sentence. Like, I don't want to have to write a sentence to capture metadata. I just want the platform to know what it is based on the unstructured data that's already available in the document. Isn't that the point of generative AI, that I don't need to worry about that sort of thing? So I think that companies like this, they sort of feel like the world is moving past them, or at least it would be more fair to say perhaps they have competition from a new source.
I like Brian's comments on this, and I'll extend it just a little bit beyond. So when I think about the whole add a sentence, I think about it from what kind of questions do people want answers to, which can actually set the context. So rather than thinking about metadata as this fixed thing, being able to analyze all of your content base, be able to pair that with the question, and then have whatever your AI infrastructure to go look at it and be able to say, okay, great, now I've made sense of this, using the question as context. That starts to give you a little bit more of a flexible mechanism to kind of get back, okay, these are the documents related to, or these are the answers that I'm extracting from the documents that I have available to me. That I could actually get pretty excited about.
All right, but let me ask you this question, and this is a great point you both Brian and yourself have just made. Like, what is the source of that information? We're going, in terms of the data of truth. I'm thinking about a major retailer, and I'll go back and tie it in procurement very, very quickly. But they had done a vendor compression strategy, went down to 100 vendors from 5,000. They were going to negotiate higher price or lower prices and less administrative costs. And within 2 years, they were calling saying, we think we're off, because their whole source of truth was that narrow scope of 100 suppliers, not the 5, 10, 20,000 out there in the marketplace. The real thing is how do you know you're corralling even the right information? How do I know Laserfish has the ability to search that out and then quantify it using advanced algorithms? Being able to say, okay, here's source 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the different answers, and here's the probability rate as to what the answer is going to be. I mean, isn't that the power of AIs in the end? It's supposed to be able to make us do things faster than the Funkin' Wagnalls and the microfiche than Google. It's supposed to be able to gather that information and with human discernment, at least provide variability as to, are the sources different? What are we missing? Are we getting a too narrow a scope of source of truth? Yeah, that's the thing that I'm having a problem with.
I like your comment, John. I think it's actually really an important point to think about. And the thing that I think that this probably is speaking directly to is all of the unstructured data and the assets that you have available that you don't actually know what you've got. So I think it's two different elements, but it speaks to the same larger topic.
Yeah, and you guys are highlighting some of the implications that would, the questions behind the announcement that you'd have to probe on and find out, like, okay, well, how big is the memory? Like, how much data can you hold in your context window? And if you're sorting out the relevant sources for me, how many different relevant sources are you really considering, and how are you scoring those, right? That's all going to be important to understand if you're thinking this is going to succeed as your window into your enterprise content.
Yeah, exactly. It's strand commonality, shreds. You know what that is, the Canadian guys, right? Scientific Research Development funded my research into strand commonality, where seemingly disparate strands of data actually had attributes that were related and had a collective impact on the outcome. The trouble is if you don't identify what those attributes are, or even worse, you don't identify what the strands are of those attributes, you're going to get an incomplete picture. And then you're going to get further and further away from the principles of AI to how I can tell it's going to rain tomorrow because of my right knee that I had ligaments torn in. I think there's still a lot of ligament tear and aches with the weather coming on. But, we have to look at the strand commonality. We have to look at the attributes and the source of the information. And to your point, if we don't have the right information available, it can give us the right answer with what it has, but not necessarily for the context of what it's needed.
I think that this is a larger problem as we look across all of the different disciplines that we're applying AI to. The core problem is going to be data. right? And gaps in the data. How do you actually identify that you have a gap in your data? So being able to ask a question, okay, if I know my known set of data looks like this, I can ask a question and get an answer back. Is that complete enough to be able to address the business issue that you're describing? Maybe, maybe not. And this is still where humans are required in order to be able to look at the answer and see whether it's actually fitting or not. And then if you find that there is a gap, well, how do we address the gap? Where are we going to get it from? There, when you have so many different tools that are being brought to the market, like and from existing markets, where there are capabilities that are now seemingly redundant because I have two tools, tool A, tool B. They have this little overlap of where the capability is. Which one are you going to pick? Where are you going to get that data from? It still, again, provides a lot of problems for the adopting organization to try and figure out, so that they either are going to look at the data sets and say, this one's better, this one's worse, or eliminate one because I have too many duplicate capabilities and I don't want to be paying extra for it.
Yeah, great debate, guys. If you don't have anything else, I'll go to the next one. All right, so guys, this story, this is Make. And in this case, John, I'm going to be with you. I have no idea who they are.
Well, they've only been around since 2019.
Yeah, so they are definitely new. I think we have covered one story related to them. I don't know if we did, but I mean, so here, obviously, they are more into the no-code space. That's how I am reading this. And they are saying automating workflows, launch of Make AI agents used by more than 200,000 businesses around the world, which is a large number, given they have been in the market only for so long. Make helps teams visually connect app systems and data to streamline processes. With the addition of Make AI agents, again, complex tasks. I don't know which tasks they are talking about here. I don't have much of the context. Customized for any business functions. And then you have rule-based workflow. So what are we doing? Is it more like an app platform or AI agent? I don't know how to read this. Maybe you guys can tell me.
I think it's a brilliant move on their part to be able to get Make as a name. For those of us that spent time earlier in their careers working with Make at the command line and doing software development, it's actually a pretty cool idea and a good piece of branding to draw back on that history.
Yeah.
But when I look at the automation space and think about all the different solutions that are available today, from both visual tools as well as the builders that help you assemble these workflows, and using credentials to be able to interact with different technology entities, if you will, to be able to drive that automation and assemble it and look at the inputs and outputs. It seems like they're just, this is the area that we want to be in. How that stacks up with the competition in a very hot space, that's a lot to be seen yet.
And if you're not familiar with Make, maybe you guys have seen Zapier.com, right? And even in the consumer space, if you've played around with if this then that, I mean, it's a similar type of concept here. Let's be the connector platform between a bunch of different systems, and we'll help you automate it with our interface. And they're in that low code, no code space, as you say, Sam, and the way that they approach it is a very visual way, right? And I think that actually is an important differentiator. And I find, like, for someone like me, I really like looking at pictures and helping me visualize that. Like, we talk so much about the natural language approach to programming and accessing AI automations, but it's not always the best way to. Sometimes you want to visualize that process with little icons and pictures. So I think this could be a differentiator for them. And just to highlight, some of the workflows that they want to help the knowledge professionals automate here, right? They're highlighting things like customer support automation. So you want to automate your frequently asked questions. You want to handle those order statuses, right? There's marketing and sales operations too. Let's generate campaign reports and draft personalized outreach messages. And then they've got HR functionality, right? Answer your questions about your benefits package and vacation policies, stuff like this. Okay, so this is helping you imagine how it's going to help users automate those little routine parts of their workflow and just get more productivity out of their day.
So, Brian, just minor comment there, I guess. So when I look at Zapier, their positioning is going to be more in the iPaaS world. They are decently positioned, I guess, as the iPaaS. I don't know if they like to position themselves as low code, no code. In this case, you are probably getting a little bit more, and the scenarios that you have mentioned, they are more workflow automation scenarios. Nowadays, companies use likes of Monday.com, Airtable for those scenarios. I don't know. And then you have a little bit of HR workflows as well there. There are many platforms. So again, my struggle is more of the identity. They are doing a lot, but where exactly do they fit? In which ecosystem is going to be my question.
Well, I'm listening, and you're talking about the workflows, and Brian, I think it was you was mentioning, connecting and serving as an integrating part for things. I think that's what you said, right?
Yep.
Disparate systems. It's interesting because everyone talks about intake and orchestration, but the reality is in like metaprise. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. The metaprise model, really, intake and orchestration is a reworking or a rejigging of the metaprise, and the metaprise was workflows based upon understanding the different agents that were involved. And I'm not talking about the theoretical agents, I'm talking about the human agents, both within and external to the enterprise. So when I look through a scrutinizing eye at Make AI, I think to myself, are they really an operating system, an AI operating system that brings everything together? I mean, most companies, most large enterprises have 25 different procurement solutions being worked, and many of them siloed. A CIO survey came out a couple of years ago where they asked CIOs, how many apps do you have in your company? And they said 100. It turned out they had over 900, almost 1,000. So, is Make AI, when they're doing this, are they a metaprise consolidator, or what are they doing? I mean, it's like, how do they know the pieces that they're going to bring together?
The thing I get really excited about when I think about this is not necessarily like, so if Make is offering a similar capability that, I think about Zapier, I think about N8N, I think about the visual tools for being able to connect these and build workflows and inputs and outputs. That's all well and good. It still requires a fair amount of human interaction to be able to make this work, connect all the pieces up. I would be really excited to hear what if you could actually start to use prompts as a way of being able to say, okay, great, this is my palette. This is what I want. Can you now start me off with, here are the sets of actions and connections that get me closer to the outcome that I'm looking for, and then be able to tweak and tune that. I don't think it necessarily absolves personal responsibility of the individual that needs to do the work, but at least reducing the bar so that somebody does not have to be an expert in a specific product in order to be able to make that work. That's the thing I would actually get pretty geeked up about.
I think that's some of the strengths of a platform like this, because it allows your champion users, your power users, to share out their templates, right? So you've got the guy that is the innovator, they adopt the Make and they figure out how to automate their payroll process or whatever it is they're doing, right? And now they can template that out and pass it on to everybody else in their department, right? So it's like those if this then that recipes. When you're logging into that platform, you don't necessarily start with having to do everything from scratch. You can just look at what other users have done to be inspired and then tweak it to yourself. So it's like switching little Lego blocks around instead of having to build the whole set from scratch. You can put the different components together and get somewhere productive more quickly.
Well, that makes sense. But what was being said previously, I differentiate between having a picture puzzle with pieces that they have different images that you can try to put together, and then having an all-white picture puzzle where there's no images to guide you, and you got to try to figure out how the pieces fit together. It has Make AI graduated to giving us a picture that we need to have to guide us to put together the right pieces, or are we still dealing with the whiteout world? I don't know. That's the analogy that comes to my mind.
The point there is that they probably need a bit of help by marketing professionals. Because I mean, yeah, honestly, if I'm looking at these bullets, they don't say much unless you are very deeply involved into what they are doing. So let's thinking a bit further on it. I would look at those AI agents not as puzzle pieces, but as components. So, and if I use that interpretation, let's move away with the fuzzy AI agent terminology that everybody feels obliged to use right now to feel kind of relevant. What this is building blocks. And what they likely have provided with that is a block of pre-built sub-processes in order to reduce the effort of automating processes. This is probably what this boils down to.
Yeah.
So it means they need someone who actually speaks language and not just buzzwords, because this is only buzzwords.
And we're getting a lot of that, aren't we?
Yeah, which is sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
everybody sounds the same.
Yeah, there's no signal in this announcement.
Yeah.
To me.
I think that part of the, like in saying real-time intelligence for no code, Thomas, to your point, I think the thing I started to hear was like going back to like Corba and some of the earlier technologies where there was the element of introspection, where you could find out what something has available as a capability to be able to utilize by interrogating it. That, if that's what we're talking about, then I would say that this is a great step in the right direction.
Right. Yeah. Instead of building a new thing, first ask the library what's already there.
Yeah.
In order to avoid a Lotus Notes graveyard. I mean, graveyard of applications or components. Yeah? So that would be cool, and that would have been a message. But it's hard to read that in here.
Yeah.
It's very hard to read this in here.
Well, they're in love with their own technology.
Who isn't, right? Who isn't?
One would hope they are.
Yeah. Yeah, they better be, actually. Else they should go for another business.
Yeah, so we have one comment. If you don't have any other comments on that story, we can touch on this. So under saying, looking for incomplete data is like trying to find a cloud that's not in the sky. Okay, great find there. What are the best methods for discovering what doesn't exist? I don't know.
Could I just, because this is when I was called into the D&D contract, they said, we want you to automate procurement. And they said, okay, our process, here's what it is. And the first question I asked is, what time of day do the orders come in? And they looked at me like, what does that have to do with procurement? And the service department, who they were connected with, they had their own agenda of saying we had to do so many calls in the day, right? So they would sandbag all the orders until 4:00. Now, what would happen, because they were MRO, is all those orders, the parts that you could get for $100 at 9 a.m. were $500, $600, $700 by 4. They had to clear customs, and their delivery performance was like 51% next day. Now, if we had just focused upon, this goes to your cloud thing, if we just focused on the clouds we see, we would have never done that. We would have sped up the system for procurement, but they still would have been getting the orders at 4:00. And that's the thing. You got to look for the clouds that aren't there, which I don't think that's done enough.
Yeah. And the answer actually to that question is that depends, because it's really depending on the scenario. Looking at service scenarios, for example, is the moment the system or I can't answer a question, then I have identified something that doesn't exist or hasn't been surfaced yet. It might even exist. Or if, well, automating that away as well, if there are lots of follow-up questions to a specific question, to a customer request, or if there's not even a satisfying response at all, as per the happiness of the customer, which one can assess one way or another. Yeah. So this is the only way that I'm aware of finding gaps in knowledge, is asking more questions.
Yeah, you nailed it, right? Because it's not like we go looking for all the incomplete data that exists. It would be a never-ending mission and not always productive, right? We look at where are the users trying to get questions answered, and if those users are not satisfied, well, why not? It's likely some sort of data quality issue. So, are we missing data? Are we misrepresenting data? Is there errors? Is there redundancy, etc.? Right? And so the questions start not from where is data incomplete. It starts from where do we need data, or why is the data not satisfactory?
And being able to think about the questions from the fact that in any organization, it has a specific purpose or a mission, and the different people in the organization have a different slice of responsibility for helping to fulfill the mission. So, Brian can ask a question, I can ask a question, and even the same question, and the result set that I get back, or the answer that is retrieved, might work for me but not work for Brian, or vice versa. So I think that being able to build a larger organizational context around it so that we can evaluate what the output is, and does this actually forward our objectives and actually fulfilling what our responsibility is to who we serve, that now becomes the key litmus test as to do we have a gap in data? Is there a difference in what we're getting back that we now need to address?
Great points, guys.
You referenced something that compounds the issue. So your cultural context or your language context is different from mine, so you might understand the response and I don't.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah. If you guys don't have any more comments, we have one more comment here. So Diana is saying Gen AI LLMs are not traditional software. That is true. They are in a continuous learning mode through our prompts and data interjections. And I'm not sure what your position is, guys. My understanding is that the prompts that you feed to generative AI, I don't think that is used for retraining. My understanding is that once it is trained, it is trained. The prompts only stay in your session so that it can provide tailored recommendation. But once you close that session, it's all gone. I don't think.
It should be like that for privacy reasons. I'm a European, right? But in general, Diana's right. This is used for refining the training or retraining the system. That's also where drift comes from, by the way. In enterprise scenarios, this is something you want to avoid by contractual means. And in other scenarios, like, take DeepSeek, for example, they explicitly say that they're using it. OpenAI too, for the unpaid versions. And for the paid versions, you have the options to uncheck the box that says, I use your input for learning. So yes, they are in continuous learning mode, but it's not exactly continuous because training in a system as big as that is quite expensive. But that certainly is input for training.
See, I think you've got to serve, there's an old term we used to say in IT, garbage in, garbage out. And that's the human interface. You have to be able to look at this. Yes, Gen AI and LLM aren't what you would call traditional. I mean, I remember programming in DBase too. and the headaches that could cause when you fixed one area and it affected another area that was previously working. But the fact remains is you still need to have that human interface. You still need to be able, that's the learning source. And that's the thing. I was reading in Psychology Today where they're talking about the human thought capacity and the AI thought capacity actually working together, not either or, but working together. And I think that's really where a lot of the things go off the rails, is that they look at this and they say, and Diana's right, it learns, but it goes off the rails when all of a sudden you take the human equation out of it. And that's, and there's too many providers, solution providers out there saying, well, we got agentic AI, it'll learn to do this, it'll learn to do that. And of course, the question comes in is, what's it learning from? Where's the basis and the source of its information? And so to Diana's point, she's right, but we still need to have that merger of human and AI together on a consistent basis, so that it does become self-learning, so that it does become, the data becomes self-cleansing. And there is a self-cleansing process, but it involves both human agents and traditional AI agents working simultaneously with each other. That's what I see from this.
So retrieval augmented generation is definitely a thing. So as you add new data, and depending upon the relationship that you have with your model provider and the specific subscription that you got, okay, so you can definitely augment things. I think it gets even more interesting when we consider the fact that from an architectural perspective, you've got the general capabilities that the LLM provides, go down to provider specific capabilities that now understand their environment, all of the data they have access to, now go down to the lowest level where potentially you could introduce your own models and your own data sets that come from actually running those models on things that you have available, or from other paid data sources that you might want to subscribe to. This becomes a really interesting world, because now it might be very tightly coupled to your mission or to the thing you're trying to do. So it's not just one homogenous thing, but rather it becomes an interesting mix of a lot of different capabilities.
And I just want to say hi to Diana. They appreciate your observation there. These guys have covered it, though.
Okay. If you guys don't have any other comments, right now, I guess, we just have 4 minutes right now, so we'll just do any sort of closing thoughts, advice. I don't think we can do one more story. So now we'll start in the reverse direction. Thomas, do you want to go first?
Oh, wouldn't say what. So looking at the story. So I have a wish, I have a dream that press releases, announcements become a bit more information laden and less buzzword laden. Because, where is the signal in many of the announcements that we are going through in the past weeks and months? So they're actually causing a lot of noise out in the market, and I don't think that creating more noise is helpful. So appeal to the vendors. Please, please, please don't use just buzzwords in a sequence, but actually explain the value that you are generating with whatever you are delivering, whatever you are talking about. What's the actual value in customers' words, not in tech words, not in buzzwords?
John?
Thomas, you're preaching to the choir. There is just so much. When I first started Procurement Insights blog in May 2007, I used the phrase of Aldous Huxley saying that truth would be lost in a sea of irrelevance. And that's exactly what we're running into now. Yeah. And everybody's rushing to be able to get their message on and pound it out there. And by the way, it's almost interesting because generative AI has made everybody a genius. If you think about it, it's like nobody writes anymore. They just ask a question. But the reality is I think these vendors missed the point. And that's why for a long time, I've discounted press releases, case studies. In a lot of cases, I've discovered that they're not even current and up to date. Let's get into really problem solving. Let's get into understanding how we can leverage these tools, because if we don't, guess what? Like we were 40 years ago, in 10, 15 years with the next great breakthrough technological wise, we're going to be having this same discussion. And we're going to be wondering why the initiatives aren't succeeding. I think we need some substance, and not to just give the sizzle.
To add on to that, John, so many of them actually seem to be generated by a generative AI.
It's the whole thing.
They've automated the press release function for sure. Yeah. I hear what you guys are saying. Yeah, and as you see all these vendors rushing out with their need to add to the Gen AI hype, I just think if you're a CIO, if you're a company that's still thinking about your journey here, it's important to have that strategy in place, not just do this incrementally and think that you're becoming AI enabled because your vendors are bringing you these sort of features by default and telling you that they've solved these problems for you. Do you want to sort of like incrementally add AI to your existing workflow and process, or do you need to totally revisit it and reimagine it with AI at the center of that, right? Or none of the above? That's a question that everybody will have to answer for themselves.
Yeah. Ken?
So the thing I really want to encourage everybody to do is, from an end user's perspective, given the way that the environment is, start trying to build a culture that's organized around experimentation. Yeah. I think that to the maximum extent that you can take small steps and learn about what the different capabilities are, so you can separate fact from fiction, and then think about how those capabilities can actually be useful to you in your organizational context, you're going to be dollars and months and time ahead, because you're now not getting something that is not going to deliver on the promise, but you're thinking about it in the context of what can we actually do with this that's going to help us fulfill our mission.
Yeah, amazing. So I'm just going to build on, what Ken said, take smaller steps. That's going to be my personal advice. On that note, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We meet every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.